News can mean many things. Sometimes it means information, sometimes it is opinion, and sometimes it is plain noise. This is Indie Radio Earthing, news with its ears to the ground, where you get the news and the views and never the noise. Hello and welcome to Indie Radio Earthing. I am your host Prajakta. Tiger conservation is a feat in itself in India. Launched in 1973, the Project Tiger has definitely come a long way. But the tiger conservation in India has lately been facing many challenges and systemic issues that several conservationists have been pointing out. Today, we are here to talk about some crucial discussions triggered after the death of one of India's beloved tigers, T84 or Tigress Arrowhead, who died last month after struggling with cancer for a long time. Her death, more specifically the incidents leading up to her death involving her, her cubs, and other tigers across India, have raised a few questions about the state of tigers in India today. And today we have with us President and CEO of Wildlife Conservation Trust, that is WCT, Dr. Anish Andheria. Welcome to the show, Dr. Andheria.
Thank you, Prajakta. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes. So, jumping right at the question at hand, in 2010, we saw these ads by Save Our Tigers campaign, which said that only 1411 tigers left in India. This ad came around 40 years after Project Tiger was launched in India. We started with 9 tiger reserves and today we have over 50. The number of tigers has also risen to roughly over 3,600 as per the latest survey in 2023. But while tiger conservation efforts have come quite far as these numbers are concerned, is the status of the and corridors for tigers who are migrating animals that are in question today, not to mention the resources available to them. So, Dr. Andheria, what is the condition of tiger reserves today?
So as you have already mentioned, Project Tiger was launched in 1973, but there were many situations that Indian forests and wildlife went through
Right.
while the British were here, and even after they left India, many of those issues continued. In fact, hunting was prevalent all throughout the country. When the British came, it was for sport. They left behind a lot of guns. There were uh, vehicles and all that. And then after they left, a lot of wildlife was being hunted down. So tigers were chosen to represent a large number of ecosystems in India because they are found in 18 states. They live in different types of habitat from extremely cold environments in, say, Uttarakhand, Arunachal Pradesh, up even beyond the snow line, and in the driest areas of Sariska and Ranthambore to evergreen forests in the Western Ghats to parts of Eastern India, even Sundarbans. So tigers are very, very large cats. A male tiger weighs somewhere between an adult male can weigh up to 260 to 70 kgs. Females seldom weigh above 130 kgs, and they are large ranging because again, territories and range are two different things. Most people talk about them loosely, but a territory is an area where the tiger spends 80% of its time. It is not carved in stone. It is normally governed by certain geographical features, could be roads, could be mountains, could be valleys, could be water bodies, could be village boundary, and obviously availability of prey, availability of water. And the range is the entire space that the tiger uses after it becomes an adult animal. And the territory of a tiger is dependent on a lot of factors, but food, prey, water, and good denning sites are very important. So tigresses will try to occupy areas where there is enough water, where there is enough food. If there is water, there will be food and good protection. So there is less disturbance from humans. Those are the areas where tigresses tend to form their territories. And male tigers, obviously. So tigresses go after food, males go after tigresses. And male generally has a territory which covers 3 to 4 tigresses territory. And a territory, again, although people say about 10 square kilometer is an average tigress territory, but that changes based on, again, the resources. So in parks like, say, a low density park in the Western Ghats, where prey availability is low because there is no grass, So you will have some gore, some few sambar, and absolutely hardly any cheetal. In the mountains, I'm talking. Tiger densities can be 3 to 4 per 100 square kilometers. However, in areas like Kaziranga, Corbett, where there is different body sized prey from wild buffalo to Barasinga, I'm talking about Kaziranga, hog deer, sambar, pigs. There are so many prey and even elephant and rhino. So calf of elephant and rhinos can also be eaten by tigers. So in a place like that, we could have as many as 14 to 15 tigers per 100 square kilometers. So territory changes based on resource availability and range could be very large. Some of the tigers that we radio collared roam in areas which are more than 200 to 250 square kilometers. So male tiger will move in that kind of area. However, it spends about 70-80% of her time in a much smaller area, which is basically going from one female territory to another to make sure that the cubs are secured, the cubs that he has sired. So that is the ecology of tigers. I have dwelled a bit in the ecology so that when we talk of how tiger reserves are doing, this information is important for people to understand that different types of habitats, different types of ecotones will hold different number of tigers. So you cannot compare tiger population high up in the mountains in Arunachal Pradesh or Sikkim with tiger populations of Kaziranga. You cannot compare Kaziranga population with Sundarban population. So density wise, there's huge variation because even if the habitats are good quality, the fact that these are mountainous regions or some areas will not support large number of large bodied prey, tiger densities will be low. For instance, in Russia, a healthy tiger population is one tiger per 100 square kilometer. Whereas in India, if you have one tiger per 100 square kilometer, then you know that there is something wrong in the ecosystem. So tigers are basically, because of their ecology and the large range that they have, are acting as a barometer for several ecosystems in India. And that is primarily the reason why they have become the mascot for conservation. So as you said, in 1973, when Project Tiger was launched, it was back then called Project Tiger. From 2006 onwards, it is called the National Tiger Conservation Authority. And that was formed because during that time, Sariska lost all its tigers. Even Panna subsequently lost all the tigers. And that is when the government had to rethink. There was some amount of complacency that had set in after the initial success of Project Tiger. And a lot of landscapes had lost tigers because of extra limital reasons, which means the pressure was not from within India, but the market was in Tibet, there was in China, in Vietnam and several other Southeast Asian countries. And suddenly, because tigers from the other 12 tiger range countries had already dwindled, India became the target because it was far more easier to get tigers in India than in other nations. And so the focus of the hunting mafia fell on India. And that is why Project Tiger had to rethink its strategy. And that's how National Tiger Conservation Authority was formed. So from 9 tiger reserves in 1973 to 58 tiger reserves in 2025. So that has gone up. More tiger reserves are forming. There are a few more in the pipeline. The main idea is to use the tiger to secure different types of habitat and most importantly, the hydrology. So if you have large forests, say thousands plus square kilometers, then that forest will give the kind of ecosystem services that is beneficial to human beings. One of the main byproducts of tiger conservation is flowing rivers. Nearly 300 rivers either originate in or are fed by tiger reserves. Nearly 600 rivers are being fed or are originating in tiger bearing forests of our country. So you can imagine. So most people think of tiger as a luxury and they say that why do we need tiger in a country like this where people are poor and people are facing the wrath of this carnivore. They potentially dangerous to people, so why do we need them? So that is the question we often get asked. But the answer is that because we have used the tiger as a barometer, we are able to judge the quality of ecosystem, because as I said, resources are very important for tiger densities. So if resources go down, it directly reflects on tiger population. And so by understanding what is happening to the tiger, enumerating the number of tigers that are found in a certain habitat and doing it every 4 years, we get to know the trends. And if the tiger population is going down over 8 years or 12 years, then you know that the forest is under some amount of stress. It could be the poaching stress, which is dangerous, but not as dangerous as forest degradation and fragmentation. So if the tiger number is going down because of degradation, because of fragmentation, because of deforestation, then that is a cause for concern, and the government will have to. So therefore, once they look at the numbers, then they understand that certain parks are not doing well, and therefore pressure is put from the center to the states to improve protection, to improve the forest quality, and therefore eventually it gets translated into tiger numbers. So tigers are not being protected just because they are tigers. They are being protected as they are called the striped water gods. Pattedar pani ka devta. Wherever you have perennial water, you will have tigers. There are several tiger reserves now in several states, Madhya Pradesh being a state which has the largest number of tigers, followed by Karnataka. Then you have Uttarakhand, you have Maharashtra, you have Assam. So these are the few states that are doing well when it comes to tiger conservation. However, tigers are found in 18 different states, and different states are faring differently when it comes to conservation. I would say out of the 18 states, there are about seven states, to be precise, who are doing relatively better in terms of conserving their natural ecosystems. And that is seen through either stable tiger population or increasing tiger population. So majority of states are actually letting the tiger down. In other words, the forests are being threatened because of anthropogenic reasons, because of a lot of dependence of the poorest of the poor, big infrastructure projects because of the government, also mining, also big dams have to come up to support farms and irrigation. And so all these different factors, which are more infrastructure based when it comes to the government, and day-to-day subsistence when it comes to people. So that pressure is still increasing on our forest, and as a result, I would say 11 out of 18 states need to take stringent steps to recover their ecosystems. If not, the tiger will be the first to go, followed by a cascading effect on other biodiversity. Eventually, there'll be law and order situation because people will not have water, and it can really create a lot of social unrest in the country.
Right. So yeah, as you said, that tigers are in fact, I think we could say great markers of healthy ecosystems. And yeah, so we spoke about resources, and we had seen instances of tigers fighting for resources, sometimes dying in these fights as forests continue to dwindle, and so do their prey. We hear of tiger reserves being overpopulated. I think that is also said to be the case with Ranthambore National Park, where Arrowhead resided. But is this struggle for resources going to set back the tiger conservation efforts?
So, Project, I think it is overhyped. The fights between tigers is a must for a good quality tiger population. And so, there every incident of mating is preceded by competition between males. And if there is a large sized dominant males and few small sized competitors, they generally don't fight. And there will be aggression, they will be posing, flexing their muscles, and the weaker animals will run away with a little bit of skirmish. However, if two equally matched tigers come face to face, they will fight till death to get mating rights. So male combat is not abnormal, and there is nothing like overpopulation in nature, which means there will never be more tigers than what the ecosystem can support. The only difference here, and that needs to be highlighted, is that the ecosystem today is not just wild prey, it is also livestock and cattle. So the carrying capacity, a lot of people talk of carrying capacity very loosely. They say what we have to understand the carrying capacity. But the carrying capacity, if we only measure wild prey, then most of the forests will not be able to support the number of tigers that they are supporting. I'm talking about the good parks. They are supporting high number of tigers, much more than what is possible in a ecosystem where there are no human beings, is because of the availability of livestock, cattle. So tigers, the population therefore looks large, and therefore people keep talking about overpopulation, because when they go for a safari, they see 5, 6 tigers in every single safari, and they feel that, oh, this is like we've read storybooks where you take many days and you don't sometimes see a tiger in here. There are so many, which means it's overpopulation. But if there was not enough food, the tigers would fight with each other. The territory sizes will change. Females will be pushed. Dominant females will push out the younger females away, and the population will again reach another equilibrium, which will be fewer number of tigers. So they are
You're right.
packed definitely much more because of this fast food centers that we have created in the buffer zone in terms of livestock.
Right.
And that gives us that feeling of overpopulation. One more thing that I must add here before we move on to another question is that the monitoring has improved a lot. So in pre 2006, they used to only look at pug marks and try and estimate tiger population based on pug mark, which was highly erroneous. And you normally had double counts or more, and there would always be an overestimation. But since the camera trapping exercise has evolved, and it has been implemented in more than 300,000 square kilometers of tiger habitat in the country, even beyond the tiger reserves. The camera trapping is done in all areas where tigers are found, including corridors and other sanctuaries where they are found. And so that kind of exercise now gives us a lot more information than we had earlier. And every successive camera trapping exercise, every 4 years, All India Tiger Estimation happens, and they are covering more and more area. As a result, patrolling has also improved in many of these areas, and therefore detection of dead animals has also improved. Otherwise, it's very difficult to get to see a dead tiger in the jungle. But because patrolling has gone up, especially I can talk about Madhya Pradesh and Maharashtra, where patrolling is taken very seriously. And that can be seen in tiger numbers in these states. Madhya Pradesh has more than 800 tigers. Maharashtra has nearly 450 tigers. And so the patrolling is high. So if there are guards who are going to walk into the forest, it's quite likely that they will stumble upon dead tigers because of the stench, which otherwise was not happening. So the detection of tigers dead because of natural causes has gone up also. So that also gives us a feeling that 20 years ago, not so many tigers died, but now it's not so. The population has gone up, so more tigers are aging, and therefore the more tigers will die every year, anyways. And if you compare that with, say, 2006 figure that you quoted, 1411, obviously it was, not just under 3 times. It was 3 times lesser than what it is right now.
Right, right. Another thing that comes to my mind when we hear or when we read news about this overpopulation is about the corridors. So, usually, when young male tigers, as they grow up after they are weaned off, they tend to migrate away from the tiger that is in their area, the older tiger, the one who is already established there. But is that getting affected as forests are getting more fragmented?
Correct. So this is a question which is a good follow-up question. That, yeah. So when you have a tightly packed tiger population, thanks to wild as well as domestic prey, the survival rates of cubs will be good, because the tigers will get food. If not wild, it she will go and kill cattle. And as a result, the cubs are more likely to survive, because the mortality rate in tigers is nearly 70%. So after the cubs are born, 70% of the cubs will not see the first year, as in not cross the first year. Yeah. So now that changes suddenly, because more tigers are packed. They are more tolerant of each other because there is no competition for food. So therefore, the intra-specific competition for food is low. There will only be battles when there is for mating rights. As a result, the more cubs are born, and therefore there'll be more cubs who would have to establish territory after they reach 2 years or more, and they will be pushed to the periphery. They don't go out searching on their own. They are pushed by dominant males. They're pushed by dominant females away from their own territory, and so they go in search of a habitat where they can sustain themselves. So that's where the corridors are important. So that when these tigers leave, they need to spend 3, 4 years before they can come back and challenge dominant tigers. If not in this forest, in some other forest which has healthy tiger population. So they need that much time. So when they are about 6.5, 7 is when they have the muscle power and the experience to challenge dominant tigers. But between the year 3 and 7. That 4-year period is a delicate period where many of these tigers live in existence of transients. They are called transient animals, which means that they will keep moving in search of an area. If they are lucky and some dominant tigers has died, they may find that empty space close to where they are, but mostly they do have to cover great distances. Research has now, because of radio collaring work that is being done, we know that some tigers have even walked nearly 600 kilometers in search of habitat. So therefore, most of these areas that they are walking are outside protected area network, which means they are neither sanctuary nor national park. So they are therefore termed as corridors. The corridors are areas which are both forested, or there is some undergrowth. It could also have agricultural land which the tigers can use in the night. So corridors are not just standing forests; they are standing forests along with some multiple use areas, which tigers obviously don't use frequently in the day, but in the night, those areas also become part and parcel of the corridor. So those corridors become very important for the sustenance of young tigers till they become strong enough to challenge dominant males. And so a large population, I cannot put a finger on how many, but I would not be exaggerating if I can say that nearly 45 to 40 to 45% of our tigers are living in areas which are outside tiger reserves. And so they definitely, that is a big population. Even if they are 30-35%, it's a large population. If that corridor gets fragmented because of linear infrastructure like road, railways, canal systems, power lines, or where there is complete deforestation because of a large mine right in the middle of the corridor, or a huge dam that is going to impound large valleys, valleys are very crucial for sustaining carnivores, because valley is where water will be and that's where the prey will be. If you have in tall mountains or the plateaus, they are untouched. There won't be many people up there, but tigers also don't breed on top, because in summers, late winters, there'll be no water left on the top of the mountains. So, and dams obviously occupy those valleys, which are very, very crucial for young tigers. And so, because of anthropogenic reasons, fragmentation, because of large infrastructure projects, because we are developing at a very fast pace, and also consistent low intensity but regular disturbance caused because of dependence of people. The poorest of the poor live around and in the forests, and they depend on the forest for their fuel wood. Also, minor forest produce like maua, like tendu, fruits, and many things. Fungi, they also collect lichen and aula, and because of which, and the densities of people around forest areas has also gone up. While the cities are going bigger, but the population size of many of our villages and these kind of remote areas have also gone up, because medical facilities have reached many of these areas. As a result, even if per family the dependence is not much, but because the populations of India are so high, that even if everybody takes just 10 kgs of wood, or they use 10 kgs of wood per day, you have nearly 100 million people who are dependent to a certain extent to on our 658 tiger reserves. And developmental project, the way we are developing at this fast pace is causing fragmentation. And we have created breeding hubs in well protected tiger reserves. So tigers are breeding well, and as they move out in large numbers, they are going to forests which are substandard or which have fragmentation. As a result, wild prey is either dwindling, or it has been totally wiped off because of the competition between livestock and wild prey, disease that comes from livestock to wild prey. And eventually, the tigers start depending on cattle, and that starts impacting the livelihoods of the poorest of the poor, and that gives rise to human wildlife conflict. Eventually a human being is killed, and then there is a lot of controversy, and the tiger sometimes, like you hear, just about a week or less than a week ago, 5 nearly full grown tigers were poisoned in Hills in Karnataka, which is part of one of the best tiger corridors on earth. But that tigress and her four cubs had killed a cow, and the poor villager, obviously frustrated and also being impacted, took law in his hand, and he poisoned the carcass, and the five animals died. So these kind of incidences are only going to grow up as we continue to degrade and fragment our forests.
Yes, so the topic that you picked, I was just coming to this, the human animal conflict, the human tiger conflict to be specific. And if we take the example of Arrowhead to touch one particular aspect of this. So Arrowhead was suffering from cancer, and the forest authorities helped her stay alive, I think, during the last period of her life by offering her live baits as it became difficult for her to hunt due to the tumor in her hind leg. The live baits were also shared by her cubs, the last litter of three. And we saw that her cubs were involved in human animal conflicts around Ranthambore National Park lately. And these events have raised questions that live baiting and desensitization of tigers towards humans, which you, as you also mentioned, due to more exposure of livestock and cattle to them, could this disrupt their behavior and lead to more conflicts with humans?
Yes, so Arrowhead's situation and that particular example is it's quite unique because she belonged to the most famous tiger reserve in the world, which is Ranthambore, and within Ranthambore also the most famous zone, which is zone number 3, which has two lakes. Actually, the third lake is also almost touching the zone 3. So it is a zone where a lot of tourists go to see tigers, and that area, the Padam Talao, the Rajbagh, and the Malik Talao area, has been talked about in so many BBC, Nat Geo films, and a lot of Indian filmmakers have also, study kind of captured tigers on camera, and so a lot of people go there. Because of that, anything that happens there to any tiger, because I said tigers are very elusive, you will never find a dead tiger in the forest easily. If the Arrowhead was not in the tourism zone, nobody would have even known what happened, and she would have died more than a year ago. Because the first time that she was detected with this tumor was a long time ago, before the cubs were born. Okay, and then the cubs almost reached 2 years, so she survived 2 more years actually after the first detection. I call these tigers tourism tigers because they are born. Arrowhead was born to a tigress called Krishna. She had her territory in the same area, and Krishna obviously was born to Machli, right? So Machli is also tourism tiger. So Machli gave birth to Krishna. Krishna grew up in that habitat. She had no fear of vehicles. She gave birth to Arrowhead. Arrowhead, her sister, and a brother. So I think Arrowhead, Lightning, and Pac-Man. These were three cubs of Krishna. And Arrowhead then pushed Krishna out, and she took charge of the territory. And since she was staying there pretty much every day of the year, other than the monsoon period when the park is shut, she would see vehicles. As a result, she obviously would give good photos because she would not get scared. Most other tigers, you go to forest where tourism is not booming, tigers you will rarely see. There are people who've gone to forests for 9 times, 9 different visits, multiple safaris with in every visit, yet they've not seen a tiger in areas where tigers are shy. So first of all, remember that Arrowhead is a typical case of a tiger reserve where tourism is very high density. Now, so Arrowhead was injured, was sick, and she gave birth during that time. There was a lot of pressure on the forest department. So forest departments generally, and I worked with several states and with several field directors, their mandate is to protect the tiger reserve core and the buffer for tiger conservation and biodiversity conservation. They look at those landscapes holistically. They don't go after individual animals. But wherever tourism is happening, people start identifying because of the films that are made, because of the photographers who write stories about how beautiful this tiger is. Or like Maya is a typical example from Tadoba, where people got attached to her. So they start giving names, very human names, and they start thinking of tigers as humans. Some of them go one step further and they start talking to them like they're part of the family. Okay, and they keep visiting. They'll say, "Oh, I've been visiting Ranthambore to see Arrowhead every season. I go there 3 times a year because I love to." There's a connection. So these kind of stories happen. A lot of these people are powerful. There is tourism pressure. A lot of people go to a particular tiger reserve to see a Machli or an Arrowhead or a Maya or a Parwali. So that puts a lot of pressure on the field directors. It is not energy efficient for a field director to go and look after every single tiger. It is just humanly impossible. But because of this pressure, they are forced to do this. And while this happens, a lot of people who have later on spoken against this practice are the people who have gone and photographed the tiger while the baiting was happening, and even while the tiger was, she recovered. It looked like she recovered for a bit, and the cubs were growing up. Nobody complained. But because Arrowhead had already seen people, she was used to people. The cubs were born to her. They also saw people in the vehicles. They were used to people. But the difference between Arrowhead and the cubs was that the Arrowhead had learned hunting from Krishna, who post Arrowhead also gave another litter and raised those cubs as well. So she was a successful tigress who was very good at hunting. Arrowhead had also learned hunting from her mother, and she was a good hunter. But Arrowhead's cub, obviously, because Arrowhead was not capable of making those long chases and those things, they obviously were undertrained, and they got easy food because of the baits. As a result, they started associating probably people with food, because whenever they would be hungry, somebody from the forest department would go in a designated locations inside the park somewhere and tie a bait there. So for them, there was obviously a connection that a human car comes and something food is given to them. So they were obviously fearless because mother was fearless, but beyond that, they didn't know how to hunt as proficiently as naturally growing tigers know. And so what happened is that when they became a certain age, and Arrowhead by default would start distancing herself from them, because this is what happens in 2 years. They till she was there, even if she was hunting, she was eating from the bait. Remember that she even killed crocodiles after they stopped baiting. Because of this controversy, the forest department stopped baiting her, and after that, she survived for several months. And she was hunting crocodiles then because she couldn't run. So she would ambush crocodiles either in Padamtala or on Rajbagh, and crocodiles are far more aggressive than deer. So despite her lack of capacity to hunt, Arrowhead never posed a threat to human beings. So you have to understand that. The one who was trained already to hunt, despite injury or sickness or whatever you call it, till her dying day, she never went after human beings, because she also had access to human beings as much as other tigers had or her cubs had. But she still remained wild at heart. The cubs, on the other hand, once they had to separate from the mother and go their own way, they started staying together. Male cub would be with the mother more often. The daughters had separated, and they virtually a had no fear of humans, and therefore at that age, when they are already in a way in a shock when the mother stops interacting with them, and then they are hungry, they will catch monkeys and small deer, but they will continue to stalk whatever they see. And it is not unlikely that for a young animal, they may look at a human being as a prospective prey. And that is precisely what would have happened. And as a result, a female attacked a child, and then it seems she also attacked a forest official, killed both of them, and then she was removed. After which, her brother was found in the same place where, up on the fort, where Chokidar of the temple was taken. And obviously, they put camera traps and they saw the male cub of Arrowhead. And so both of them were taken away. And finally, because two cubs had already shown signs of grave danger for people, as a precautionary principle, on precautionary principles, they moved the third daughter, the third sibling also, which was a female. She had not done anything, but because two of her siblings had done it, they removed all three of them. And finally, Arrowhead succumbed to her illness. And so 2 years of effort and so much of energy on one tiger actually became a zero-sum game. Instead, if people had not put pressure and Arrowhead had perished, that territory would have been vacant at that point. Some other tiger or tigress would have come in, and the social life of tiger would have continued like it does in other forests where tourists don't put so much pressure. Such things don't happen in Corbett because you hardly see any tiger. And only 2 or 3, 4 tigers you see, that too not so out in the open. And there are so many more tigers there than in Ranthambore. There are so many more tigers in Tadoba than in Ranthambore. Yet, people But Tadoba again is not very different from Ranthambore. A lot of people keep talking about tigers like, it's like part of their family. So they will have Matka Sur, then Chota Matka, and there are so many such. Plus, I think a big role social media has to play. A lot of people who go there and take photos and videos today, either on their phone or on these digital cameras, it takes them few seconds to launch a channel, and they keep talking about that. I've been going to follow Chota Matka, and is he the undisputed hero? And then they keep presenting that animal as if he is the reason why Tadoba is surviving. But actually, Chota Matka within the tiger community has no different status than any other tiger there. But it's only, this is all created, and it has a cascading effect on the psyche of tourists. So they keep going there, and so that creates a lot of hodgepodge, and the eventual pressure falls on the field directors, and they are forced through it because some powerful lobbies are at work, and then they do this. Eventually it has backfired, and the forest department has been ridiculed on this one, but I know the kind of pressure that falls on their shoulders when something like this happens.
So yeah, in case of human-animal conflicts, we just talked about relocation of tigers, and when in fact it is a necessity in some cases, we see this happening in case of other animals also. Relocation is seen as, even some conservationists say that it's an easy way out, and those are the allegations that are being made. But is that the only solution out, or specifically talking in case of tigers, is there any effort of community conservation or community involved conservation efforts being done anywhere in India?
See, conflict happens, and once you know which tiger is responsible for human death, or if there is a tiger that is compulsive, it's habituated on taking cattle, then the field director at his level, with permission from the chief wildlife warden, can ask for removal of the tiger through tranquilization. So once they know that a certain tiger, they know through direct observation or through camera traps that this particular individual is connected to a human death, sometimes not one, two, or three. In that situation, they give an order to remove this animal. And at that level, in my mind, such animals should not be released back. So there should not be any translocation of such animals, because there is always a chance, if you catch a tiger after the first human death, and even if it is an accident, I mean, it's very difficult to tell. And if that tiger goes in another area, the tiger has to establish her or his territory once again. And that area already has tigers. They obviously hold territories. So you are disturbing the structure there. And so the tiger has to go through the entire thing once again. So that tiger will be under stress for quite some time, because it has no search image, it has no idea about this new habitat. And so it is potentially dangerous, because if he or she doesn't get acclimatized there and they keep moving, the only place available to such tigers will be close to human habitation, because there other wild tigers will not like to be, because there is a lot of disturbance. So such tigers start living close to human habitations, and they start taking cattle, and eventually if a shepherd goes to drive the tiger away, when normally we have seen in our organization that when we go to the site where a human death has happened, you generally see that if a shepherd is killed, you will also see a cow or a buffalo or some other livestock dead. So the tiger actually went for that, and the shepherd by default, or a group of people, will run after the tiger to shoo that tiger away when the tiger is actually in the process of killing the cow. And at that point, mostly the tiger runs away. So 99 out of 100 times the tiger runs away. So they do it off and on. But sometimes, it's during unfortunate times, you get too close, or if there were two or three tigers there, you didn't see the other tigers. Such people also get killed. So translocation of tigers that are involved in human deaths should not be done as a precautionary. Anyways, tiger population in India has done exceedingly well in protecting its tigers. We have nearly 70 to 75% of all tigers of planet Earth. There are 13 tiger range countries. So we should be happy that we have been able to resurrect tiger population, are able to maintain that population, and not worry about a few individuals Because if you go and focus on an individual, if at that individual sheds more blood, the entire population of tigers gets bad name. People are anyways, and a lot of local politicians take advantage of this, especially opposition parties. Whoever is ruling, the opposition will always blame the ruling party. They will instigate the family who has lost people. And a lot of Indians are so resilient and they're so tolerant. I've rarely seen a family who are mourning death actually abusing the tiger, which is unique. No, I have not heard of any other country where such a thing happens. So we really are very, very tolerant. But because of political reasons, such families are also instigated. Like often on you will hear, and the demands are made to increase the amount of compensation. So in some states, they give as low as 5 lakhs. In some states, they are giving 25 lakhs. So it's all politically driven. But what happens is in the process is that tiger as a species becomes like a terror for the poorest of the poor. So in saving one individual, you're actually jeopardizing the entire population of tigers. So I feel that translocation of animals that are involved in attacks on cattle and humans should be avoided. Obviously, communities, that other part of the question is very important. And I would say India has done exceedingly well, but it wasn't possible if communities were not so resilient, not so tolerant. Impossible it is in the 21st century for people in anywhere on the earth to accommodate a carnivore which is, literally 4 times heavier than them. Okay. In all other countries, large carnivore densities are going down because of retaliatory killing, because of poaching, because of illegal wildlife trade. In India, somehow this is not caught up. And it's not just because of the protection that is being awarded, it is because of the culture. And I keep saying this again and again. And so communities have to have a big role and a big vote in this. So I think the top-down type of conservation has worked in late 70s, 80s, 90s, but now it's a new era where it should be bottom up, where we have conversations with communities, what their aspirations are, what are the myths that you need to bust, how can you insulate them from attacks of tigers, how do you improve their livelihood so that they can live in a pakka house, they can answer the nature's call inside a toilet and not open defecation is also is a big reason why people get killed, because early in the morning is when the tigers are active and that's when the people are sitting out. So a focus needs to be now put on communities, and actually we have to go and ask them rather than telling them what we think they should do. We should go and have dialogues, and we have already as an organization started doing that, where we actually try to understand, because it's very easy for you and me to sit in our cozy homes in cities to advocate for tiger conservation, but the opportunity cost is being paid by people who live alongside tigers. So we are already late, but I think it's a good time to understand, because most of the credit of this upsurge of tiger population goes to people, the poorest of the poor, who are actually living alongside these animals and can fall prey to them at any point in time, going to answer the nature's call, going out with their cattle to graze, or going to collect fuel wood or minor forest produce, or even just commuting from one village to another for a child to go from one village to another village for school. So we have to understand that, and I feel that if any country can achieve some amount of balance, I think it is India, and we must try our level best. And not only the conservation NGOs, the social activists and NGOs should all come together on the same table, have a dialogue with the forest department and community leaders to see how and to understand what they want, and then create policies to suit them.
Yes, I believe that's the note we should end this discussion on. And this is definitely a ray of hope, as you said, that India has done this before. And instead of putting the blame, putting the onus of the human animal conflict on the vulnerable who are actually affected by it, it is time that we work with them, as we have been working for years. And that's a great note to end this discussion on. Thank you very much, Dr. Andheria, for joining us today and sharing these valuable insights with us.
Thank you very much.
So that was Earthing, news with its ears to the ground. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And if you are listening to us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or any other such platform, do consider following us on YouTube as well. For more news and podcasts, keep listening to Indie Radio. News can mean many things. Sometimes it means information, sometimes it is opinion, and sometimes it is plain noise. This is Indie Radio Earthing, news with its ears to the ground, where you get the news and the views and never the noise.